This will be a joint meeting of the D.P.W. Subcommittee and Town Council, Tuesday, November 26th, 6:14 p.m. Veterans Meeting Room. Roll call. We have Councilor Rivas.
Present.
Councilor Daniel is excused. Councilor Shenny is here. Subcommittee member Cody. Subcommittee member Lazo. Absent. Both of them are absent.
I'm sitting in. I'm sitting in to make the quorum.
And Councilor Lazo is sitting in Chairman Lazo is sitting in to make the quorum. We are going to scratch items number 3, 4, and 5 at the request of the D.P.W. So we'll go right into Article number 6, review and discuss entering into a contract to operate the wastewater treatment. Entertain a motion for approval to Town Council. Anybody make a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second. Discussion. Gentlemen, I apologize for being late. And just, so let's go with Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you. So as you're aware, we did a request for proposals to have a new operator or either new or retain the current operator of the wastewater treatment plant. There were members of the, we had a committee that reviewed those proposals. We had 4 proposals that came in, 3 of which were reviewed by the review team. Those that reviewed the proposals were Chairman Lazo, Rich Benoit, Hannah Prescott, and we had members of Ty and Bond present to review them as the technical experts on those proposals. Those proposals were then reviewed, and we invited 3 companies to come in and interview with us. Those were Whitewater, Infomark, and Jacobs. Upon review of the interviews, we then opened the price proposals, which is the requirement of the process. So we ranked the respondents, and then we did the price proposals, and then based on the review, there was a recommendation to me as town manager as to who we should move forward with. The company that we were selected, that was very well represented both in regards to the written proposals that they provided to us as well as the interview process, was Jacobs, and we do have representatives of Jacobs here today. So the next step was to evaluate the price proposals. The price proposals were all very fair. Price proposals, they met with what our appropriation was, and therefore we decided to enter into contract negotiations with Jacobs. Those contract negotiations, unfortunately, we are going back and forth just to fine-tune the final document. We are on a tight timeline because we had given notice to current operator Veolia that we were terminating their services. So we are on a tight timeline as to getting the contract awarded to the company that's going to take over it, and then have the transition for them to take over as of February 1st of 2025, right? February 1st of 2025. So my hope is to have the final written document on Monday evening for all of town council. Hopefully by Friday we'll have it. I'll check my emails even though we're off. They are working on those final edits of that. So that's where we're at right at the moment. Part of the reason we selected Jacobs was their proposals and their review of how we could mitigate the odor issues that we have down at the wastewater treatment plant, and the solutions that they provided, as well as a whole compost solution to the compost that we have there. So their solution, their technical expertise was by far very well presented to us. And I believe that the partnership that we will have with Jacobs over at least 5 years, if not more, is beneficial to the town. Chairman Lazo was there, and D.P.W. Director Benoit. So I'll gladly, if you have any questions or the chair would like to say through you, Mr. Chairman.
I'd just like to add that this was a very in-depth process that was that we took part into to review our current operations, look at the, you know, the shortfalls of our, you know, predecessors, whether it be from, you know, representatives of companies that have been working for us as a town or predecessors here within the town, just to try to get to the bottom of some of these problems. I know coming into this position just shy of 2 years ago, one of the noticeable things that was brought to my attention was quite obvious, was the odor. Everybody in Southbridge has been living with the smell of the wastewater treatment facility for as long as anybody can remember. You know, it's very unfortunate that we have a large shopping center, a very major focal point of the town that directly abuts our wastewater operation. And it kind of behooves us to, you know, put a little extra effort into, you know, moving forward with a program that is much different than what we've seen in the past, and try to put ourselves in a direction that's positive with the, you know, abundance of ongoing projects that have been resting with monies on the books for quite some time prior to my arrival here. Lots of concerns about you know, process and odor. Our current operator has transitioned through different staff members. The current plant manager has kind of made it his intent to do something about odor, even though their time was a little short on it. Everybody knows there's a problem. You know, we don't receive odor complaints any longer. It's just normal for Southbridge, and that's quite unfortunate. It's not fair to the residents. It's not fair to the people that want to come in town and do business. And you know, part of my goals in this process is, you know, if I don't do anything aside from pave roads and fix the smell of the sewer plant in my career here, I think I'll be successful. So I'm hopeful that the gentlemen that we have sitting in front of us are representing a company that brings forth a very solid resume for being able to undertake this type of a process, and they're you know, giving me some guarantees that they're the people for the job, and I believe what they have to offer is true, and we hope to see that turn into a success for both Jacob's company and the town of Southbridge.
Chairman Lazo?
I will echo the same sentiment as the D.P.W. director. I'd like to thank Hannah. Hannah did a great job with the town manager, myself. I think that the interviews said a lot more than the resume. Resume, everybody looks good on paper. You get in the room and you start asking the questions and what the priorities are. And in some of the other companies, the priority was the electric bill and the water and the cost control and all this here. And the one thing about the Jacobs company was compliance, compliance, compliance. Because if we're not in compliance, it comes down on the town. And I think that was like their priority on every one of their priority lists, was to be in compliance. The odor was always of a discussion. They have a very, very experienced gentleman that they brought in on their team. Their team did their homework before they even landed in Southbridge. They knew who we were, what we do. They knew our system pretty well. They toured it. I think they did their homework before they got here, and then when they came in with their team, they were just impressive on all fronts. They also add a workability when they brought up ideas on screening, on who purchases the equipment. They really have a workability with the town to work together. I've done a lot of interviews over the years with different companies. This company, I give you credit, you were rock solid. When we rated them and everything, they were heads above the other two companies that we talked with. Moving forward, I'm excited. The D.P.W. director has, you know, in the interview asked some really great questions where you look at him and your reaction was like, hey, you knew your stuff. There was no stuttering. There was no phony presentation of, look at what we want to sell you. This is what we do. And you were solid in your message, and I think that you earned the right to be the company in Southbridge. Thank you.
I just have a question without having any like documentation.
No, I apologize.
It's hard to form a, you know, an opinion. What was the difference between the two, or the proposals as far as the mitigation for the smell? I'm very interested in what kind of put this company over the others as far as a plan, and what are the details of that plan, if someone can
If I
share
may.
that?
So we did a walkthrough as part of the RFP process. So all 4 companies that were interested in bidding came in. And Hannah and myself had done a lot of research to this process, because we're not wastewater people by any means. We're no different than most people sit at this table. We know where it goes. We're just not sure what happens afterwards. So with the research that we did in noting some of the ongoing issues with our process here in Southbridge, and looking at the capital improvement plan for monies that have been put forth for certain projects, most of which are still viable projects that still need to happen. And we're very thankful that that money is still there so that we can utilize it to get through some of this stuff. We noted that there were issues with the compost operation. So we are one of the few wastewater treatment facilities left in the state of Massachusetts that run a composting program. So most other places will take their solids in liquid state and ship them off to another facility for treatment. We have a process that breaks down that liquid out of the solids. Our process tries to get as much liquid out of the solids, and then we process the solids through a composting process. We noted some significant defects with our current process in the materials that are being used to create that compost, the types of materials that we're finishing with as a product. There's different methods of compost and different, it is wood all the way around. So depending on the type of wood you utilize, gives you a different finished product, which could be worth something of value. So we're looking at, that was one of the things that we had put forth to the companies that came to us, was our composting program is not good. As part of that, the composting program is a large part of the odor that is attributed to the facility. There are some others, but that is the majority. Also some other process shortfalls. All 3 companies that we interviewed had a very solid proposal for what our priorities were. I think that it was hands down that Jacobs had stood out above the rest. As Chairman Lazo had said, they came to us and had a very definitive answer for what they saw was an issue with our process in the tour that we had, and noted the direct means of how they would handle taking care of that. And not to take anything away from either of the other 2 companies, but they brought it to the table that we were most confident.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just add to that. One of the things that, for an example, we have a composting barn where we have a big pile of composting. And they noticed immediately if you break the piles into smaller piles, then they asked us, it should be screened. And then they're talking about a different quality of a final output that is of value. So when they come in and they explain all of this, and they had one gentleman on your team that was just, really scientifically specific on what has to happen to conquer the problem. And again, when you're sitting there and you're looking at all 3, they were heads above the other company when it came to that portion, along with some of the other things. But that was one of the big things because of Southbridge. We've been having the odor. We did it wrong for so long, made it right, and now we have somebody coming in. It was noticed by him, and then all of a sudden the team comes in, and they're on the same page, and we're all heading in the same direction. It was a breath of fresh air.
Just one more question. So with this new, and I learned a lot about this when I went to visit the water treatment plant, so I learned a little bit about all of this. And I lived in that area for a long time, and so I'm very familiar with the odor. Will there be a potential to get revenue from what the material, like the change in materials, in order for it to be more valuable?
Yes. So we're looking at ultimately the end product. So if we revamp the compost program, we add a screening the ability to screen the material. We will save money on the amendment, which is the wood chip material, because we'll be able to recycle a portion of what gets screened out and put back into the process. We'll also potentially be able to create a revenue stream off of the screened material, the fine screenings, as a finished organic product for composting. And then additional to that, we're also going to continue to look into the efforts of revamping our septic receiving program. So that will also be a revenue stream for the town.
Thank you.
Councilor Kelly.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chairman. So, I think we've tried to address this odor problem in the past, is that not right? And we haven't been able to correct it. I'm just wondering what is so different about Jacob's approach to the other problem, other issue, other companies who have tried to mitigate the problem. It can be, you don't have to give me a technical answer, but you explain it with the least amount of technical information as you can.
I think, from my perspective, if I may, was in their proposal, they had the odor dispersion modeling so that they would be able to come in and actually study the odor, the different sources of those, and that's part of their value-added proposal to actually study it. I think others have said, well, you need to build a new headworks and you need to build this facility and that will take care of the odor. I don't think in all my term, I don't think I've ever seen a study that was actually completed that said, okay, these are your potential sources. This is some of the solutions that you can have to do that. That in all my tenure that I've been, either on council or here, I have never seen that portion of it. And we spent a lot of money back in the day on the plant. So I think this was a fresh approach to that older model where it was more of the same. If that answers the question, I think it's just their team that they brought in with their engineering and conversations about how they tackle the issue was more of, we will look into what is causing it and provide solutions to that.
Can one of you gentlemen maybe answer his question or enlighten us on what your process may be?
Sure.
If you want to just introduce
Scott Mangold, I'm a regional manager for Jacobs. So regional manager for the Northeast. So this project will fall underneath me. So specifically with regard to the compost, the piles that are there on site right now are called erratic static piles. So what happens is in order, the blowing air, currently the contractor's blowing air through the pile, right? And it's pushing the odors out of the pile up into the air, and that's what a lot of times is what you're smelling. So I think what we want to do is we want to create a negative pressure. So we want to pull air through the pile and then send it through a biofilter. And then once it goes through the biofilter, it's supposed to eliminate the odors. Another thing that I think is a problem too is they're not putting bio blankets over the piles. So a bio blanket is essentially wood chips. So really what you're supposed to do when you have those piles of compost is put those wood chips on there, maybe 6 to 12 inches, and it will encapsulate the odors as well. So those are two things that we're going to look at regarding compost. And then somebody mentioned the headworks. So the grit chambers aren't covered, and essentially what happens is the raw sewage comes into the plant and it's slowed down, and then the grit that, the fine particles drop to the bottom of the tank, and then the flow continues through the plant. So we think that that's also a cause of odors as well. So we're proposing to cover those tanks so the odors don't escape. So those are just two of the things that we're going to look at. And then, as mentioned, we're also going to have our engineers and come in and do an odor study to potentially find other sources of odor.
I was just going to explain a little bit more about the composting. So in wastewater, we've got like 3 different processes: physical, chemical, and then biological. Composting is a biological process, meaning that we've got these little microorganisms, we call them bugs, right? And so these things need oxygen to survive and to consume, and we give them this happy area. So what we do is we give them lots of oxygen by aerating it. And unfortunately right now, because we're aerating the pile, we add the air to the bottom of the pile and it blows the odors up into the atmosphere. So what we're proposing is a negative aeration. We'll put a blanket over top of it. Now we're going to pull all of the air through the pile still, but instead of blowing it up into the atmosphere, we're going to pull it backwards into the pile. So still aerating the bugs, still aerobic organisms. What's happening is what's called volatile solid breakdown. And what it means is that these organics are breaking down and they release methane and H2S and carbon dioxide. But most of that happens, 80% of those odors are released in the first 20% of the time. So that's where we're really going to have covers on them, do our negative aeration and try to capture as many of those odors as possible. And then we'll send them through what's called a biofilter. And it's another biological process, meaning that we'll have like some wood chip media or something where organisms will grow on there, and then they'll be like high in ammonia and other things that come off of that negative aeration, and then those organisms will consume those before we ever release that air back into the atmosphere. So we're going to try to capture the odors.
Councilor,
makes sense.
anything else?
No, I noticed it was not a contract.
Right.
in here.
So we have been going back and forth. We had sent it over to our legal counsel for comments. We got it back yesterday morning with some markups. We sent it over to them for their review, and Rich had reviewed it. We got it back that most of those edits should be completed. I should have an edited copy tomorrow. We'll review it, and I will get it out.
Could you just summarize for the public?
Yeah.
Whoever may be listening,
So-
what the scope of work is on this?
Well, the scope of work is management of the wastewater. There's a bunch of different things they manage. The wastewater treatment plant itself, all our systems, the underground assets that we have, the piping that we have, and pump stations. If you look throughout town, there's numerous pump stations that are in various needs of improvements. So they would manage everything and anything having to do with our processing of wastewater. The existing, what we have now for Veolia, that they manage. They will also do an asset management inventory as part of the transition, so they'll go through all our assets, inventory them, evaluate them, rate them, and then from that we will develop a list of priorities for the next capital plan to come out and say, this is what we need to prioritize in the immediate future, and then for the immediate needs, and then in the future. And we do know that there's numerous projects that have been on the books that hadn't been undertaken. So, it's comprehensive. So, did that answer that? I mean, there's a lot of assets that are there, but fortunately we're in a good position for some of the council had done over the last couple of years with a brand new vac truck, brand new camera system. So we have some very good equipment that we own. That will assist in quickly evaluating our system. It'll be a 5-year contract initially with options for renewals up to 20 years on a mutual both, because they're new to us, they want the opportunity that they want to be long-term partners. We hopefully we can have the same long-term relationship that we had with our previous contract that was close to almost terms of 40 years. So. Anything else on that? I mean, and essentially the contract is essentially the same as our current contract operator. It's just tweaked to some additional new language, updated language, definition of like what you said, the wastewater treatment plant and that link. So.
Anything else? Council Marquetti, Council Oswald, and Council Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, I'll try to speak up. Hoarse voice tonight. In my lifetime, I worked for a company that serviced wastewater treatment plants, and I've been to wastewater treatment plants all over the country, and I've never been to one that didn't have an odor problem. It's something that they cannot solve. I've been to some down in South Carolina that they use big barrels of perfume, and they squirted into the air, and that didn't really help. It just was, sweet smelling shit. There's only one place that I've been to that actually you did not smell anything, and that was in Los Angeles at the Sepulveda wastewater treatment plant. And I don't know why, I know that they had a huge garden all around, and you could smell all these flowers and stuff, but you couldn't smell any shit, so I don't know if that's the answer, or if it was just that it was such a huge place, and it was all spread out, and maybe, as I said, maybe the wind went a different way. I don't know. That was the only place that I've ever been to that didn't smell, so good luck keeping the smell down. I don't know how much success you're gonna have with that, but that's my experience with it. I'll hold off for a second, I got a couple more things, but if you want.
No, I don't think they promised that they would eliminate odors. It would just be that
Okay.
we would reduce the odors because due to the process, to your point, there is gonna be some smell. I don't think there's a process, but there has to be something to mitigate some of those excessive smells and bring it down, not to zero, but better than what we've been dealing with for the last.
And then the other thing, a couple of things is that, first of all, for me, cost is important, because my water and sewer bills are pretty high, and they go up every year, so. it is
Not this
important-
year.
It's important for me to hold down the cost, well,
Yeah.
it did go up a little,
2%?
No, we had no rate increase this year, so.
my bill went up.
Yeah, so, no, cost is important, and this was right within what we budgeted for the year.
I know that some places, they allow bidding on supplies and chemicals to help, and that helps
That-
keep costs down. Don't
that-
know if that's what you're planning here.
That is part of the conversations that we've had, that we are looking to purchase through consortiums that we have for state bidding list and all that to keep the cost down. Yes.
So finally, I am looking forward to at least getting a chance to look over the contract. But while these guys are here, because I've heard a lot about how you guys are really praising them, but I don't know anything about them. Where are they from? What other experience have they had running wastewater treatment plants? I would like to hear from them. And that's all I have. Thank you.
My plan was, after we were done asking the questions, it was to introduce them and tell us about the company that they all work for or own. I don't, how it is, but at the end of the questions, I'll allow them that opportunity. Council Lazo.
If I could circle back, I was under the impression that septic systems in Southbridge and surrounding towns were allowed to dump into the sewer plant, which said they're not allowed to do that anymore, and it's a revenue source that you're in business of sewerage, and you're not gonna accept any sewerage. I'm glad to hear that this could come back where we could actually have a revenue source from accepting septic from septic systems. One other thing that they mentioned was kind of a compassionate side, that they would interview all the employees at work, because we have a lot of local employees at the sewer plant, and that they would try and work through that and try and hold on as many as they could if they were useful to what they're going to be doing in Southbridge, which was more of a compassionate thing to the workers. Thank you.
Council Rivas.
You mentioned a study that you would be doing. Sort of what would be the timeline between like the study and sort of implementing some of what you're talking about, just to get a sense for our residents to kind of have, an idea of how long some of that would take?
So we would begin setting up the study almost on day one. But in speaking with the engineers, the best time to observe the odors is the summertime. So we'll be setting it up and then doing a lot of the legwork and actual studying once the weather warms up. And then depending on what we find, then we'll implement the solutions.
Thank you.
My question to the town manager was, you said it's a 5-year contract with options to make it up to 20.
Yes.
Things that I just, maybe Rich can answer to me is, the present operator, we've had a lot of serious issues. Some known, some not known, but for instance, the pipe break down the AO, I know it was leaking, but part of it made it worse is the fact of lack of maintenance to the facility area on North Woodstock Road, that it wasn't cleaned out properly and that kind of stuff. Also, I was told that part of the problem with the present operator was in the contract, there was multiple opportunities to repair manholes, which they didn't do, those kind of things. Is that, how are we gonna follow through that this happens? Is there something in the contract that fines them or gives us the opportunity, if they're not doing it, to remove them?
As in any contract, there's always methods to remove, an operator under these circumstances if they don't do their work. To reflect back on, like, the manhole repair thing, that was something that was put in the contract years ago, and I believe this most recent contract, there was not actually any means in there to enforce them making repairs to manholes. The current company and the incumbent company isn't actually set up to do any of those particular repairs. Those things would have to be, outsourced to other vendors. But I will note that this is going to be a great opportunity for the town, just in the fact that with all of the changes that have taken place in town over the last couple of years, with new people coming into these roles and really putting forth an effort to make changes that are necessary to the town, there's millions of dollars of unspent money that has been lying just limber in accounts waiting for the work to be completed. And we've seen some motion in a lot of different areas that work has been completed or begun to be completed on many outstanding projects. And we have, right now we're in cooperation with the Mass DEP and also some EPA regulations that have been brought to my attention of things that need to be done to our wastewater operation. And in creating a relationship with this new company, we are looking forward to rectifying these issues and getting some of this stuff out from over our head. There's been some things that's been, the town was supposed to do in 2018 for EPA regulation that was not completed. Mass DEP has just completed a 5-year inspection of the facility and has issued an extensive report on findings that they have noticed during their inspection, and some deliverables that need to be made in order to make things right for their report. One of the things is an odor mitigation study, which was something that Jacobs had included as part of their package. So there's a lot of benefit all the way around. There's a lot of benefit for a new company coming into our town and noticing the issues that we're having and helping us to strengthen our weaknesses. And I think that's where we're heading. So.
Do you generally plan on having a local person on staff, so in the event of an emergency, we're not waiting? We're kind of used to things happening yesterday instead of today, and that will come quick enough to be here in an emergency situation. Do you plan on having local people?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your company.
Sure. Jacobs is it's an engineering company that has an operating arm, which is dedicated and focused on water and wastewater operations. We have a total of 300 different water and wastewater treatment plants across the country that we operate. We operate several in the Northeast as well. We operate plants in Westerby, Rhode Island, Woonsocket, Rhode Island, Waterbury, Connecticut, water treatment in Connecticut as well, New Jersey and New York as well. So we've got about 3,000 people on staff dedicated to what we call operations and maintenance. We also have a very strong engineering group, and part of what Rich and Scott were talking about was one of our local experts dedicated to compost studies and odor control and mitigation. And we're looking to utilize this technology to monitor these piles and ensure that the odors are controlled and captured. And we have very robust staff. We're looking to hire most of the people there, but we have some people, senior people, we're looking to put into place to run the place as well. So that's kind of the overall approach.
The one thing that I'll add is the operations side of Jacobs was founded in the early 80s as OMI International, Operations Maintenance International, and then later they were acquired by an engineering firm called CH2M Hill. And then CH2M Hill was acquired by Jacobs, and I think it was 2017? Yeah, so 2017.
Anybody Questions?
Just one point. Rios, the gentleman named Rios,
Matt Rios.
Matt Rios was impressive, and he was considering moving to Southbridge. He's our day-to-day operator, am I correct?
Yes.
He's the project manager.
Commander in charge.
And he was very, very impressive.
And he's on vacation right now, so he can't be here.
Councilor Marquetti.
I'm just curious as to where you are from.
So my name's Scott Mangold. I'm a regional manager for the Northeast. I'm based out of Philadelphia.
And the headquarters for this?
The headquarters of Jacobs is located in Dallas, Texas.
Good compromise.
They'll get there someday.
Yeah.
I do like Oklahoma, by the way. So. Well, gentlemen, I look forward to having you as our contractor for the wastewater treatment plant. And I think we'll take a vote tonight, and if all goes well tonight, I don't know if you plan on having them Monday night.
They will be there Monday night,
Yes.
along with Kevin.
Kevin will be here as well.
All right, so nobody else has any questions of the gentleman? Okay, all those in favor of reporting this to favorable to the full council? Opposed?
I'm just gonna abstain
Abstain,
until I see
one
the-
abstention.
But I wanna see the contract.
Okay,
Thank
and
you.
you'll have that contract hopefully for Monday, correct, or Friday?
Right, yeah.
Okay,
The edits, you're gonna clean it up and have the edits for tomorrow. Huh? Yeah, no, I will do my best to get it, but
I plan on having a discussion with yourself and the D.P.W. Subcommittee meeting at a future date. Most recently, the water bills have gone out, and some people have experienced very high water bills into the thousands of dollars.
they're gonna have to contact the water company because we did a 0 rate increase, so we're gonna have to look at what
I
those bills
understand
are.
that. What I'm asking is to look into a process to be able to help these people out, instead of just being told you're gonna pay the bill and that's it. If there's a process that something is abnormal in the thousands and thousands of dollars, I know one person, 9,000, and I know another person that got one for 6,000. And that's a combination of both the water and sewer, but there's not a process to be able to mitigate that for these people, and there is?
There is a process.
Yeah, it's an abatement process I found out today.
Okay, that's what
Because they were a local resident that called,
I
that seemed,
I didn't know about the abatement process, so maybe we can explain what that abatement process is at some meeting, and this way it would better help the public out there.
So just to give a brief answer to your concern, so if anybody has an issue with their water bill, we did not have a rate increase as the town
Correct.
manager stated. So if there is an increase to their bill, there may be an underlying issue with either their system or maybe our system. So they should reach out to Robin at the water department next week. She can help them and walk them through and review their bill and see if there's anything that we need to look into on our side of things for the excess in charge. If there is an issue outside of something like a leaking toilet, a leaking faucet, anything that goes through the meter, it is the responsibility of the property owner to pay the bill. If there is something that is shown outside of the meter or something that is not discharged to the sewer, we do abatements on one side and not the other. So if water was used to fill a pool or for pressure washing or any of those things, we usually end up issuing an abatement for the sewer portion of the bill up to a certain amount based on estimated volume that was utilized. So they can start by reaching out to the water department next week after we return from the holidays and have asked their questions and we can
Because
look into it.
that's my question, is that does the abatement process, if it's a town issue, they go through the abatement process. This is to help somebody that went from a $200 bill to a $6,000 bill that can't afford it.
No, it
Is there an abatement process for that person?
This is a very common issue. I don't know if there is any assistance that can be offered from outside of the town system for assistance with the bill or help to locate a problem within the home, but we do have a process to abate excess usage if it is deemed necessary due to unknown circumstance.
But they should start with the water company to say, hey, I have an issue.
They have, and they
Okay.
found the issue was in their home. and they,
Well, we'll have to talk about it
Okay.
offline. It's not part of this
Right.
agenda, so.
we're all done, and I allow discussion.
No, I just want to say,
Okay.
I don't have a solution for it tonight,
All
but
right,
I
no,
will
we'll
look at it.
have a discussion. Okay, I guess we'll make a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Gentlemen, good luck Monday night.